Hello and welcome to Eco-Terrorism. I'm Zeinab Bailoun. A controversy has developed over the benefits of water fluoridation and its existence in some chemical products, such as toothpastes and mouthwashes. While many European countries eliminated fluoride from drinking tap water, the United States argues that water fluoridation has no negative impact on human health. Today we have with us in the studio Ms. Majd Saleh, an epidemiologist. So first of all, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So before we start our discussion today, let's take a look at this report.
Fluoride is a natural component of many resources and can be found in soil, water, foods, and several minerals. Laboratories are a means of fluoride synthesis. After its production, the fluoride is added to drinking water, toothpaste, mouthwash, and various chemical products. In this regard, authorities in the United States add fluoride to tap water as they believe it reduces the prevalence of tooth decay in the local population. American authorities argue that in the early 1930s, scientists found that people who were brought up in areas with naturally fluoridated water had up to 2/3 fewer cavities compared to those who lived in areas where the water was not fluoridated. Nevertheless, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the exposure to excessive consumption of fluoride over a lifetime may lead to increased likelihood of bone fracture in adults and may result in effects on bone, leading to pain and tenderness. Children aged 8 years and younger exposed to excessive amounts of fluoride have an increased chance of developing pits in the tooth enamel, along with a range of cosmetic effects to teeth. According to World Health Organization, in most European countries which do not have water fluoridation, there is no discernible difference in tooth decay between developed countries that fluoridate their water and those that do not. In Germany and Finland, for example, decay rates either remained stable or continued in their downward trend after they stopped adding fluoride to their drinking water. Therefore, the fluoridation of water does not suggest from authorities to raise concern and set off the alarm, as long as the consumption of fluoride is moderate. The big question is, how moderate is the individual consumption of fluoride? Moreover, what other illness might fluoride cause?
So Ms. Saleh, can you start by telling us more about fluoride first?
Well, fluoride is found naturally in water. It's found in the rain. It's found in surface waters like lakes and rivers. Mm-hmm. It's even found in raw vegetables and raw meat, even in milk and eggs. But the thing is about fluoride is that it's naturally found in very small quantities, mm-hmm. and so it's not toxic. It doesn't hurt. So we could say it's a naturally found chemical mm-hmm. in nature.
So where exactly is the problem? Where does the problem arise? Where is the controversy?
Well, the problem starts by when the added synthesized fluoride is added to water, mm-hmm. Because in high numbers of fluoride could cause toxicity. Mm-hmm. And so, but it does have a positive impact when it's in very small quantities. So the problem is when when there's an overdose.
Mm-hmm. So why do we find fluoride or synthetic fluoride in drinking water? What exactly are the benefits of having it there?
Well, adding synthetic fluoride started a very long time ago. Mm-hmm. In the US, they discovered that when in areas where fluoride was naturally present in water, people had less decaying and missing and filled teeth than the areas which did not have fluoride in their water. And so they came up with an idea to do a trial and add fluoride, synthetic fluoride, to the waters in certain cities and compare them to other cities. Mm-hmm. And they noticed that they have this index called decaying, missing, and filled teeth, which they call DMF mm-hmm. indexes. So they noticed that when they added fluoride to the waters, people had their DMF indices decreased, and so people had less dental problems. And so that's when they decided to add synthesized water, fluoride to waters in the developed areas. Mm-hmm. Now it's beneficial, it is beneficial because it did decrease decaying teeth, caries, and all the dental problems. But the problem is with the toxicity that it might cause, mm-hmm. because nowadays it's not just found in water. Now, as we said in the beginning, it's found in toothpaste, all dental toothpaste,
mouthwashes, things like that.
It's also found in processed foods. It's found in other pharmaceuticals. It's found even in pesticides that are used daily. And so we're not just taking fluoride from the water anymore. Now we're taking it from other sources. And so the quantity is increasing, and this could be lethal.
At what point do you think that this can be a very negative thing? How negative are the side effects?
Well, it depends. You could have an acute fluoride intoxication, and you could have it chronic. Usually chronic develops with people who work in landmines or who work in aluminum factories. And you could tell the symptoms develop chronically. They develop over time. When it's acute, it's different. What happens is suddenly there's some sort of spill of fluoride for some reason, and people experience a lot of symptoms and are admitted to the hospital.
So can you compare, for example, the usage of fluoride in certain countries as opposed to it not being used in other countries, and what exactly have been the differences?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, in the US they noticed the difference, but we're talking about a very long time ago when there wasn't much processed foods. People didn't use toothpastes very much. Now we're being exposed to fluoride in different sources, and so I think in the report they also mentioned that WHO noticed that there is no difference between the areas where there's fluoride in water and areas where there aren't. And anyways, fluoride is found in water in very small quantities. So we're being exposed to fluoride even if we do not fluoridate the water sources.
So if there's no huge difference between, countries where this is used in drinking water and countries where it's not, is it exactly a problem if it is included?
It is a problem because the lethal dose of fluoride is 0.1 to 0.3 parts per billion, which is milligram per kilogram. And so let's say a person is 10 kilograms, like for example a child, the lethal dose will be 3.1 or about 3 parts per million, and that could be lethal, and they could develop a lot of something called dental fluorosis, even skeletal fluorosis, and over time it could decrease consciousness, concentration, and it may lower the IQ. And so the problem is with the increase in doses. The U.S. Health Department also asked from the authorities to lessen the dose, because I think they're beginning to see that it is causing a problem.
So how common are these problems?
Well, maybe dental fluorosis are a bit common. They're usually common in areas which are more exposed to fluoride. But I could say that maybe with time, if the fluoride consumption stays the same, by the time a person is in his 40s, maybe the symptoms will be obvious.
When should authorities set off the alarm about fluoride consumption?
Well, there are some groups or some activists are starting to work on this issue, and I heard that in Canada they're beginning to they're going to come up with a law to ban the use of fluoride in water. In the U.S., as I mentioned earlier, the health department is also beginning to ask for a decrease in fluoride in water. When it's going to be implemented, I don't know.
It's another issue.
Yeah.
Do you think there's enough awareness about this issue? Do you think that we need more organizations and activists who are talking about it to kind of make people aware of what's going on?
Yeah, I think so, because I think there are a lot of people who don't know, especially people who drink tap water most of the time. I think they should know. They should be aware of this.
And so this is more common in, for example, the United States as opposed to other countries?
Exactly, yes.
And how do you think this awareness should be promoted?
Maybe like activists, maybe TV programs like this one. Yeah.
Do you think, for example, the government should play a bigger role in advocating this change in
Well, I think the government,
consumption?
I'm not sure what's going to happen exactly, but I think they're going to be asking for more trials to be done, scientific studies to be done on this issue in order to implement the ban of fluoride in water.
So what exactly do you think authorities should adopt as preventive measures to a fluoride outbreak?
Well, preventive measures, well, to begin with, fluoride shouldn't be used anyways. And they should also keep people aware that even pesticides contain fluoride. And so if people are going to use pesticides, they should use it, they should stay away from the area that was clean for a while. Also, while the authorities are fluoridating the waters, they should be careful not to form any spill or anything, just in case, because a spill could cause an acute outbreak. And so, so I think these are the basic measures they could take.
What about on an individual level? Do you think there's anything we can do as individuals to kind of, as preventive measures?
Maybe they could start drinking bottled water rather than tap water. Maybe that's the best they could do. Now, in the areas around here, the Middle East, I don't think it's a big problem. But in the U.S., maybe that's the best thing they could do for now.
Do you think this is actually something that that would be protective? This kind of measure, just drinking bottled water, or is it not enough?
Well, it's not, because bottled water does contain fluoride,
but not maybe the same levels.
Maybe not the same. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Saleh. We'll be back, but we'll be taking a short break right now, so please stay tuned.
Women's rights redefined.
Welcome back. So now joining us by phone from Ottawa, Canada is Mr. Joe McMurray, an activist and admin of the Fluoridation Free Ottawa Facebook page. So first of all, thanks for joining us today, Mr. Joe.
How are you today?
So can you start by telling us more about water fluoridation in Canada, mainly in Ottawa?
Well, it's been going on for some time now. For us, we have a few big issues that essentially have caused us to start to take action to raise awareness. And one of the main issues when it comes to fluoridation is the fact that there is no consent by the citizens to be on this treatment for their teeth, essentially. Now, the biggest issue with medicating the water is that unlike most other medications, you cannot control the dosage and you cannot monitor the intake. So for those with health conditions or even infants who may not even have teeth yet, fluoridation is not in the best interest of everyone, medically speaking, when it comes to informed consent.
So what exactly is your work as a group of activists in this field?
Well, what I'm up to, I'm essentially a volunteer, as many of us are, and what we do is we meet monthly, as a group, we each take out our own individual initiatives. Some of us reach out to the councillors in the local city hall. Others spend time doing advertising on Facebook, some local magazines, health magazines. We put ads in there. We also we go strongly with the word of mouth. We try to stir up conversation and inform others. And essentially, we work on our agenda on a monthly basis. And each meeting, we have a open table discussion where all of us come forward with what we've done and where we plan to move forward with our goals.
Do you feel that this has been effective? What exactly have you achieved so far?
Well, so far we have had some media stories cover our movement as well as the anti-fluoridation movement in general. Now, a few months ago, about 8 months ago now, London, Ontario removed fluoride from their water. And shortly after, a few weeks later, Maclean's magazine, a large magazine in Canada here, did an article, and the gist of the article was, "Are anti-fluoridation activists coming to a town near you?" And the media is starting to pick up on the issue. Essentially, as we grow in numbers and activities, then we get some mention in the papers, and essentially it's back and forth, but we slowly gain more critical mass so that we can be more effective with what we're doing.
So many scientific...
go ahead.
No. So many scientific studies reveal that there's a natural occurring of fluoride, and it's something that you can't really prevent so much. So what exactly is your stance on that?
Yeah, so in Ottawa, what the fluoride that's used to fluoridate our water supply is fluorosilicic acid. So that is actually imported, and it's added as a basically a fluoridation chemical. It's not naturally synthesized. It's basically from the phosphate mining industry. It's an industrial byproduct that is paid for by the city to be added. Now, when you compare that to sodium fluoride, which is the naturally occurring ion of fluoride, this is less toxic because it does not include all the byproducts that the acid, the hydrofluorosilicic acid that's being added to the water. Now, this is not a pure medical grade drug. This is actually a waste product.
So we'll be going back to our guest in the studio, Ms. Saleh, for a quick minute. Can you tell us your opinion on this? What exactly is your stance on this issue of the natural occurring of fluoride?
Well, as he mentioned earlier, I mean, I agree with everything he said. But the fluoride that was that's naturally present now is enough if we want to compare the other products we take, like the toothpastes, even the processed foods and all that. So they add up to the fluoride in our body. And so keeping the naturally present fluoride is enough rather than adding other chemicals that have byproducts that are toxic and that affect the gastrointestinal system and the nervous system.
What about this type of activism in the Middle East? Can you talk about that a little
more? Well, up until now I haven't seen any such activities, but maybe we have to test our waters first to know if it's a problem. Do we have a lot? Is it naturally occurring or it's added? But I doubt that. Like in Lebanon, I doubt that it's added. It mostly comes from pesticides and processed foods and all that sort. But we could, if we do an activity before such products rather than water.
So back to Mr. McMurray, can you please tell us more about the exact association between dental health and fluoridation?
Well, that in itself is definitely one of the most controversial points. Now, we definitely take that into consideration because, of course, that's what the arguments entail. Now, what they say is that it's for our teeth to prevent cavities. Unfortunately, fluoride in high doses can cause fluorosis, which appears as a chalky white stains on the teeth in its initial stages. That progresses to a yellowing and an actual loss of enamel, and eventually it can cause serious damage to your teeth. Now, with that in mind, essentially, we have to remember that different doses are ingested by different people based on their habits. If one consumes lots of boiled, if they cook by boiling rice on a regular basis, for example, now they're actually concentrating the fluoride dose in their foods when they boil the water. Others, such as beer drinkers in Canada, when they ingest alcohol or beer that's made with fluoridated water, they're getting also a much higher level because the process to create the beer steams the water away and once again concentrates the fluoride. So with that in mind, the fluorosis is a negative effect, and essentially there may be an inverse relationship between dental health and fluoridation, but to play it fair, the studies essentially show no difference between fluoridated and unfluoridated countries, or regions, for that matter.
Would you say that there are any scientific or academic studies that prove the negative impact of fluoride on human health or intelligence?
Well, yes, of course. There's been a recent study at Harvard University that found a correlation between the intake of fluoridated water and the IQ, the intelligence quotient in humans. So essentially, it can negatively affect the brain as it is absorbed, not only by the brain, but by the thyroid, notably by the thyroid. Also, it has no place really anywhere in our body other tin being topically applied to the teeth. So the way we look at it is, why take the risk to ingest it when if it is effective, it's only topically. And we think that it could be applied to people's teeth if they like, or if they'd like to get supplements, but mainly we would definitely want to avoid being dosed by something that doesn't necessarily need to be in our diet.
So what exactly are the strategies and plans for raising public awareness and withdrawing the implied consent to be fluoridated?
Well, it's a multi-step process because we depend on the actions of everyone else who's concerned about this issue to help us basically pressure the responsible parties within our government to take a look at the issue, to re-examine the science, and to open up the debate as to whether or not we should be medicating the population with a substance that's classified as a drug, although the quality is not a pharmaceutical grade. Now, clearly, we have been gaining members daily, and if I could put it down in a few simple words, we have three basic strategies. Number one is to continue to raise awareness to all types of people that live in the city that may not be aware of the issue. Number two is to contact our municipal politicians and actually sit down with them, discuss the issue with them, show them some information that we've collected over the years. And number three, as we grow and as we inform the politicians, we're going to find out who is accountable and who is responsible to make these decisions, and we're going to hold them accountable by ensuring that there's no unethical or immoral fluoridation that continues to go on in our city.
Thank you very much, Mr. McMurray, for joining us today. We'll be back to our guests in the studio for a final question. Ms. Saleh, can you tell us, give us a few final comments. What do you think you see in the future of fluoridated drinking water?
Well, in developed countries, that's something else, and I'm very happy there are some activists working on banning it. The whole issue is that it doesn't come to our area, and they don't decide to fluoridate our waters. But if we stay as we are in this area, I think we'll be less prone to fluorosis and all the other stuff he mentioned.
And in other countries such as the United States, North America in general, will it decrease?
Well, if they keep on, if they go through the steps Mr. Joe mentioned, I think it could, yes.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Dear viewers, before ending our episode for today, let's take a look at a scientific review. مش خلص الوقت؟ ما منلحق لك الهول. طيب. لأنه مش حاطينها على النهاية ما عاد مش تقشطروها شو اسمه. طيب يلا لحظة، هلا بقراهم لهول البوينتس يا علي ولا لا؟ طيب Thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Saleh. So, dear viewers, before ending our episode for today, let us take a look at a scientific review. Okay.
Again.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Ms. Saleh. So, dear viewers, before ending our episode for today, let's take a look at a scientific review of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency issued by the American National Research Council's research. 1. There is scientific evidence that under certain conditions, fluoride can weaken bone and increase the risk of fractures. 2. Fluoride pollution from various industrial discharges and emissions can also contaminate water supplies. 3. In a few areas of the United States, fluoride concentrations in water are much higher than normal, mostly from natural sources. 4. The current EPA standard does not protect against severe enamel fluorosis. Many thanks go to Ms. Majd Saleh, an epidemiologist, for joining us in the studio today, and to Mr. Joe McMurray, an activist and admin of the Fluoridation Free Ottawa Facebook page, for joining us by phone from Canada. This was Eco-Terrorism, and I'm Zeinab Bailoun. See you next week.